Shirley Chisholm is quoted as saying, "Community service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth." Let's talk about community responsibility on today's episode of the Playing with a Purpose podcast. All right, welcome to the Playing with Purpose podcast, where we explore topics related to the moral development of collegiate athletes and young people as it pertains to character, responsibility, and purpose. I'm your host, Matt Barker, and today I'm excited to have Freed-Hardeman University Dean of Student Life, Tony Allen, with me on today's episode. Tony, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, I've known Tony a pretty long while.
Quite a few years.
Tony started working at Freed-Hardeman when I was still a student, I think. So you were here.
Yeah, what years were you?
2002 to 2006.
Yeah, I started in December of 98.
Okay, so you were here for for pretty much the entire time I was a student at Freed, and switched a couple roles between now and then. So I know at one point when I was here, you worked in retention at Freed-Hardeman. So you were the guy that tried to keep students here, every year. So
kids that would run away from me when they'd see me in the student center.
That's right. So, but yeah, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background. I know we'll get into the topic today of community responsibility, and we'll talk about some of the roles that you have now with some programs we have at Freed-Hardeman. But give us a little bit of background about your prior work experience, education, things like that.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Huntsville, Alabama. I went to a little private Christian school called Madison Academy.
Yep.
It's a lot bigger now and seem to be knocking out, D1 athletes and
Right.
NFL players and stuff now. That wasn't the case back when I was in school. But went to Freed-Hardeman. My grandmother was a dorm mom here, actually, for, over 10 years. And that's how I knew about it. And once I got out, when I was actually here, which kind of ties in with what we're talking about, is I worked at Youth Town, just right down the road in Benson, Tennessee. And back then, it wasn't a drug and alcohol facility for young people. It was a group home for kids in state custody for abuse or neglect. I did some mentoring out there when I was in school and then worked in the summers for them. And then it just kind of when I graduated, it went right into a full-time job. So I worked there for about 5 years as their activities guy. Loved it. I mean, I honestly think that if they hadn't changed what they were doing, and the setup of that place, I would still be there. Yeah, I loved working with that set of kids. And my dad was big into agape back in Alabama, which is, kids that have to go into homes for foster care and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. And I mean, we had 250 acres to play. 250 acres of land with a lake, with trails, deer.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Had a gym, had a ropes course. I mean, it was great. They would let me take them anywhere. I created a basketball team, and we played high school teams. I mean, we just had the best time. And working with that set of kids, their needs, loved that. So then something came up at Freed whenever Youth Town was changing the way that they were structured. And started out in admissions and then went into retention, trying to keep kids. And then it led into being the Dean of Student Life, doing the activities on campus. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I've got my undergrad is Bible and art, and my graduate work is in education, and I'm not using any of it.
There you go. That happens sometimes. I mean, but you're doing great things here at Freed-Hardeman, and we really appreciate you here. And I know a lot of the things that you've done here with making music, and they keep you pretty busy, Tony. Let's be honest. You're pretty busy with everything going on. So
I love it.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you're doing. But let's get into a segment. This is one of my favorite segments because we kind of get to know the guest here on the Playing with Purpose podcast. Let's get into the segment that I like to call the Fast Favorite segment with Tony Allen. So first question I had for you, I know that you and your family, especially in the summers, your wife is a teacher, so you can't always do this maybe during the school year, but you travel a lot. You do a lot of camping. Yeah. So I want to know the favorite place you and your family have visited, maybe camping, maybe outside of camping, whatever you want to talk about there.
Well, we love the West.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've been 4 or 5 times where we just were like, we're putting 5,000-6,000 miles on the van.
Yeah.
And we're driving. And we've never flown.
Yeah.
It's always been our van, what we can stick in it or on top of it or behind it. And we just go, and we throw a tent in there. Tell you what, you can save a lot of money on trips if you go find Bureau of Land Management area.
Yeah.
And even there, payment is a box, and it goes, we're just trusting you to put some money in this box.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah. But
so anywhere out west then?
Anywhere out west, but my favorite place is Zion National Park. I think that's what, Utah. And I mean, you're just walking through these trails and you're looking up and cliffs that are hundreds of feet above your head, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, I've never been to Utah, but I've been to Colorado and some other places kind of around that area. So, all right, favorite thing about living in Henderson, Tennessee? You've lived here for a while. It's a little small town, but what do you favorite thing about it?
Well, I think that's it. Small town.
Yeah.
I just, I go to Memphis or Nashville, and I love what it offers, but I'm like, man, I'm ready to get out.
Ready to get home.
Yeah. I love the small town atmosphere and some of the people that I'm around here. I just really, been able to get really close to, in a small town.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So you're in charge of, over producer making music. So I know you like music. Yeah. Favorite song to blast in the car?
Well, it's, I never can really use the music that I love in making music.
Yeah.
Because I love rock and roll.
Like AC/DC or something?
I love rock and roll, man. And anything Jack White. You know Jack White is, White Stripes, Raconteurs, Dead Weather, his solo stuff. I mean, he is my all-time favorite. So anything that he does, I love.
Okay. Favorite hobby when you're not working?
I've gotten back into baseball cards a little bit over the last year and a half, just because I pulled some out of the garage, looked through stuff I didn't think was worth anything, and realized I had a bunch of Hall of Famers sitting there.
Nice.
So,
that's always good.
It is. I don't put much into it, but I love doing baseball cards.
Yeah. I think I know the answer to this next one. Morning person or night owl? I feel like you have to be a night owl, right?
What do you think?
Yeah. With your job, you got to be a night owl.
Well, it's funny. I cannot go to sleep before midnight. Even during the summer, my body is trained that I'm not going to sleep until after midnight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just funny because I woke up this morning, checked my email, and I had an email from Tony that said 1:10 a.m. that said Wicked is playing at the Cruise Theater. I'm like, that could have been one that was set up beforehand, but I'm like, I bet you he was up sending that.
That's me.
And now he's here, this morning for the podcast. So I appreciate him coming in. Yeah. Favorite holiday?
It's got to be Halloween. And because I got 3 kids and we've been here a long time. So North Avenue, have you been on North Avenue?
North and Crook, everybody goes there.
If anybody doesn't know about this, in Henderson, Tennessee, you get over 1,000 trick-or-treaters typically at Halloween on those 2 streets. And my in-laws live on one of those streets, and they have this awesome wraparound porch. And so every year, my father-in-law buys a bunch of pizzas. We go there, eat pizza, and just sit on the porch.
Just watch everybody walk by.
It's so much fun. And half the people, if not 3/4 of them, walking through.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
It's awesome.
Favorite movie? Oh, that's a tough one.
Well, not really. I love a bunch, but my all-time favorite is one called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's an old Western, and it's got Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne in it.
I got you.
And I just love that movie. If it's on, I can just sit and watch it.
Anytime it's on, yeah.
Anytime.
Favorite go-to comfort food?
I wish I could say I have access to this a lot, but I don't. But my all-time favorite is brisket.
Oh, yeah.
Brisket.
And you do a lot of smoking meat and everything like that,
I wouldn't
too.
say a lot, but I try to.
Yeah.
And granted, I cheat.
Yeah.
Okay. A pellet grill is cheating.
It's not okay.
It's not true.
It's more than I do, though.
Yeah. Well, you can learn how to make it good on those pellet grills, but the true guys are the ones that actually do the wood and sit up with it all night. I don't do that. I cheat.
Yeah. It's okay, though. It still tastes good, right?
It tastes awesome.
Favorite sports team?
Roll Tide.
Yeah, I knew that was
Roll
coming.
Tide.
You and my wife both.
My whole life.
Yep.
You had to be one.
Right.
If you grew up in Alabama, you had to either be Crimson Tide or Auburn.
Auburn. You had to pick.
My father-in-law is Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, the last guest I had on, Drew Stutz, is a huge Auburn guy. So
really?
all he was talking about was Auburn. So we're not endorsing any certain team, but yeah, Roll Tide for sure.
Well, it is funny right now. We almost have to be a basketball fan for Alabama.
That's right. Yeah, and Auburn's #1 right now for basketball. So, all right, last one here. If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
I had it in my head that when I graduated from Freed, I was going out east to North Carolina. I'd either be in East Tennessee or North Carolina because I love the outdoors. I loved anything hiking, fishing, camping, rock climbing, all of that. And I thought that's where I need to be. Yeah. And I am in flat West Tennessee.
You're in West Tennessee. It's nothing like East Tennessee.
Yeah. So that's where I would have loved.
Some people call West Tennessee the boring part of Tennessee. I don't think that's true, but a lot of people that live in East Tennessee think that. So.
It doesn't have to be, but there are some pretty cool things in East Tennessee.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things I want to talk about, thanks for indulging me on those questions there, Tony. We had something that was back in September. University Servants Day is what we call it. And this is something that was started this this was the fourth one. I looked it up because I was trying to remember. It seems like knew we had at least two. This was the fourth annual. September 26th was University Servants Day. And one of the things that Freed-Hardeman tries to do is with the mission, to help students develop their God-given talents. And one of those things is service. And so to help students maybe recognize that a little bit, we have something called University Servants Day. And students are not in class that day, and they're instructed to go out and do some sort of community service project. Right. And this is something that you and Student Services has kind of heads up every year. You and TJ Kirk and Amy Smith and a lot of you all will help social clubs find different things they can do. So tell us a little bit about that. We're talking about character development through community responsibility. I think it's a great thing that Freed-Hardeman does, and talk a little bit about that.
It was something a few years ago that was part of the strategic planning of the university, and to make service a component of what we teach students. And so, and be intentional about it, not just talk about it, but be intentional about it. And so the idea came up, and then when it came to, well, how do they, it's the whole strategic plan committee, how do we pull this off? And it was like, well, Tone's the activities guy, he's playing stuff, so do that. And Wayne was here when he was my former boss, and so he's like, you got it, and no budget, but you got it. I go, okay, all right, there we go. And so from there, it was, do you go through this list of what you typically think of service projects? Hey, let's go rake leaves. Hey, let's go do this. Nothing wrong with any of those typical things that you think about. But what are we really trying to teach these students? Because you got such a diverse group of students here with hundreds of talents that you couldn't even think about. And so we came to the decision that, hey, you decide what you want to do for the Servants Day today. What does that look like? What kind of talents do you have? What things do you think that people wouldn't think about that maybe you could utilize that day, because you have a whole day? And at first I was thinking, well, maybe they're just going to use this day to sleep in, and it's going to be a skip. It's not been that at all. And what's really great, and I don't know what your perspective is on this from your generation, but I do feel like this generation of young people are a lot more attuned to serving others and loving others in all ranges of people than my generation is. I do feel that, and I see that, and it's very positive to me. And I hate it when people really talk bad about this generation, because they've got a lot of great characteristics, and love and concern for other people, are willing to bring in and socialize and engage in different groups of people that maybe my generation did not want to, or didn't feel comfortable to, So that's kind of like where it came from, was going, all right, today you're going to figure out what you want to do, and you're going to utilize that. And we've had anywhere from going and visiting and sitting with people, to writing cards to people, to going and singing for them, going and playing for them, or do a play, go play games. There's a lot to be said for presence, just being present with somebody. We want to think about, well, what's this crazy thing we can think of about serving somebody? And sometimes it's you. It's just you.
Just being there.
Being there. And there's so many people, even just in our community, that just want somebody to be present with them.
And I liked what you mentioned, too, about letting students pick what their talent is. I know a lot of times that if you're just assigned something to do, it's just going to be like another assignment that you have to do.
Get it done, check it off.
Not everybody is going to be good at fixing things. I know, like me personally, if someone were like, you need to go help this school fix this problem, wouldn't be able to do much, but I can sit with somebody. I can go and I don't know if they'd want me sing either, but I could at least, help organize that. Right. So helping them kind of take a little bit of ownership with that, I think, has been something from my perspective that has been good. I know that a lot of the social clubs, they have certain places they like to go that they've helped every year. And so they kind of build some of those relationships, which we'll talk about in a minute. But giving them that ownership, I think, is good. Have you seen kind of students take a little bit of ownership by giving them that option? Or is it something that, they feel like it's something they have to do every year? Is it something they're kind of starting to maybe enjoy a little bit more
It's
each year?
A wide range, it really is. And but the majority are intentional and want to take it seriously, which is really encouraging. There are some that need to check it off for the day, but realize that's very few in the percentage of things. And what's great, though, is that they really, like the big groups, clubs, that's a lot of people to go send out in the community, and do you have enough for them to do, know? And so they really think it through, going, okay, we need this amount of people over here. Let's go over here and do this. But thinking through, how can we really serve and this just not be another thing that we're checking off,
Yeah.
and to have to process that in your mind too. Because I know one of the questions that you had for me to think about today was, what does that say about your character and how
Yeah.
does that develop your character and stuff? And unless you've seen somebody else in your life doing those things, or unless you've had somebody go, hey, here's what that means. Here's what you can do. Here's how you do it when you do it. Are you really even going to do that in your life? Is that going to be a part of your life because you didn't grow up seeing it? You
Yeah.
didn't grow up knowing about it.
Right.
And so you do see some students struggling with, well, how do I make this day meaningful to me?
Right.
Or what is my talent? Do I have any talents to offer?
Yeah.
So there's some really internal things happening on that day or leading up to that day. And so it's really cool. And I think that's part of that process of learning.
Absolutely. And a lot of these things that I meant to talk about, we've already touched on a little bit, but you mentioned mentorship, I think is the word that I was thinking of when you said you don't always see this maybe played out into people's lives, and maybe until they come to Freed-Hardeman, they don't see, maybe they've never been on a mission trip. Maybe they've never been on a community service project before with their youth group. So this might be the first experience for a lot of students doing something like this. Yeah. So maybe what role have you seen mentorship, maybe faculty, staff in, going with these students, maybe encouraging them? Maybe it's a sponsor of a social club, or you and TJ Kirk and all those encouraging students. What role have you seen that play in maybe building up some excitement around the event, but also just modeling that to these students?
Yeah. Well, it's huge. It's huge. Those people that are influences in your life are huge. And what's great is students will come here and maybe they haven't thought about something in a certain way. You get somebody like, Matt Cook or, TJ or somebody that presents something in a way that it just clicks with a student and they go, I love that. I want to be a part of that. How do I do this?
Right.
And something just clicks in them and it's just boom, they're motivated, for whatever reason, whatever hit on their heart or their mind. And they go, I can do that. And I want to be a part of that, because there are kids that come to Freed that never in their life ever thought about being missionaries or doing mission work or serving in a way like you can go into this profession, but wow, you can also be a servant in a way to either that population,
local church or wherever,
or whatever, and have that also as a part of your life. And so until you're exposed to it, it's hard to just think off the top of your head that, there are all these possibilities out there.
Mm-hmm.
So mentors and people that helped the old pedagogy thing. And I do want to say this, it was something that you had, given me some questions about. To me, defining those terms first.
Yeah, community responsibility. Yeah.
Well, some of that stuff, to me, that simply means the way I define it is how Christ-like am I?
Yeah.
Because character, you can use that in a lot of different ways. It could also be kind of a negative connotation. Well, man, they were really nice to that person. That's not part of their character.
Right.
You could use that term in a very negative way. But character is just kind of what's intrinsic to you, what's your nature. With our faith and what we believe here, there's no better example than Christ. And so when I think of character, and you talk about, character is who you are when nobody's looking. Absolutely it is. Yeah. But also, you can be a very good person but not have Christ in your life. So to me, when I use that term, what's your character and all that stuff, for me, it's about how much can I be like Christ?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's how I use that term.
And you see verses like James 1:27, taking care of widows and orphans, looking out for the interests of the other. In Philippians, Paul talks about it throughout a lot of the books he's written, and it's a constant focus on others, which is kind of what community responsibility is. But to your point, this is not just a one single behavior. This is a combination of things that make up who you are, your combination of behaviors that just make up who you are. Right. And if you have Christ, as the forefront of that, obviously you're going to have high character because you're modeling yourself after Christ. Yeah. So that's a very good point. And you mentioned too, we talked about mentorship. I thought it was interesting because I teach here. So there's obviously students that in the area I teach that I probably connect with more than maybe other students in other majors, right? Because just of the experience in certain areas for careers and things like that, so I think that's good to have people like Matt Cook, people like, other professors and other staff that have experience in different areas that students can relate to. because then they have a little bit more of an excitement to do it. Because they see that, someone that's in a certain career that they want to be in, and they're doing this. So that kind of gives them a little bit more encouragement to do that. So I think that's a great point as well. So thinking about some challenges sometimes that are associated with it, you mentioned a little bit earlier about you were, maybe early on in the process, you're worried this might just be maybe students will just sleep in. I don't know if they'll participate fully in this the first couple years. There's probably obviously a few challenges. Probably budget. You mentioned not a lot of budget to have a lot of money to do this. So that's probably a little bit of a challenge that's associated with. We can't give anybody any, monetary support to do these things. But from a student's perspective, maybe what is something challenging for them, maybe outside of just maybe never doing it before, feeling a little uncomfortable? What are some challenges maybe they have in participating in an event like University Servants Day?
Well, I mean, you can dream big, and then you don't have the resources to do some of that, I do. Okay, so I want to say this because a second ago I said I hate it when people talk negatively about this generation. So challenge is a good way to put it, right? How many times have you, with this generation of young people, maybe walked across campus or you're at church or wherever, young people don't look you in the eye.
Yeah, kind of looking down at their phone.
Look down at their phone. They don't engage in you when you try and make an effort to engage.
Yeah.
I do think that's a skill that some of them are lacking. I do think it's one that's not been developed. And you could go into the whole reasons for that, our phones and social media.
Distractions.
And also the meanness that comes with some of that.
Yeah.
And so engaging with people, there's a lot of anxiety, there. And so I think that's a challenge in a way to engaging in your community and your church and your school and all of that is just what they're dealing with. And I don't want that to sound negative because I think they're dealing with things you and I never had to deal with. And so it's so easy for somebody just to get on some kind of platform and say something about somebody and everybody instantly know it.
Yeah.
And so you've got anxieties there of engagement with people. You might have had negative experiences because of that. There's so many situations and things like that we've had to deal with here at Freed-Hardeman with that. And so I think that's a challenge that this generation wants to engage. They even want mentors.
Yeah.
There's so many students that I've realized they don't always come right out and say it.
Yeah.
But they want somebody to kind of take them in and to love them and guide them. And
they just don't always know how to ask for it.
They don't know how to ask, and I'm seeing that a lot more now, whereas I used to think I had it all worked out. But I do think that's a challenge that the way that the social structure and everything is now, it's tough for them to do some of those things. That is a challenge.
So what have you seen as a result of it? A lot of these challenges going in, maybe it's lack of time, lack of resources like we've talked about. Maybe it's just lack of awareness of how to go about doing this.
Sure.
Have you seen any sort of reward that from students that maybe when you first met them, you're like, I don't know, if they'll enjoy this. And then you've seen students later that's just like, I really enjoyed this and this was a great experience and I definitely want to do this again. Do you have any success stories that you've seen with that you come to mind?
Well, let's think about what's been happening for quite a few years with Phi Kappa. Phi Kappa was one of our social clubs.
Yeah.
And years ago, there was this family, the Govers, that had a son that social group took that son in and really spent a lot of time with him, made a big impact, and then he passed. But the club still went out to see the Govers.
Linda Sue
and Don. And then Mr. Don passed.
Right.
That didn't stop him from going out there and seeing Miss Linda. I mean, she's never alone, or it never has to be. There's always people out there with her. And that's been going on for years.
Yeah.
And then when stuff happens or they get together or making music or whatever event happens, that there's going to be alumni out at her house. There's going to be alumni that are specifically going, before we leave here, we've got to go see Miss Gover.
Right.
The impact of that over the years of seeing a group of people take care, love, support, and also be supported and loved by that family.
Yeah.
That story to me is one of the best ones.
Yeah.
And the impact on both sides. because then you've got kids that have graduated that see the worth of a relationship, that maybe they see the intrinsic reward of that relationship and how it can be impactful. And then that's an example they take out with them and go into their lives and can use and go, hey, wait, we got this family over here, this situation here. Let's go and support them. Would they be doing that and be aware of those situations if they hadn't seen it while they were here?
If they hadn't had other opportunities,
right,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so you've been around Muskover too. She's just the sweetest lady, and Mr. Don was too, and they loved those students, but those students loved them as well.
Yeah, and we think about one of the words that kind of comes to my mind when I think about community responsibility is it helps you develop empathy, right? So like you're looking at it from, how can I help them with their needs? We talk a lot about this in the classes I teach at Freed. Is our culture, a lot of times we're not pre-exposed to just being giving to others, right? Can be kind of selfish by nature, individualistic, compared to other countries, we're very much out for ourselves a lot of times. So students now that's just the culture that they're brought up in, and they're not always taught, we need to look out for this person. I think churches do a good job of this to hopefully do some benevolent work and things like that, but we're not always it doesn't come natural to a lot of students to have empathy and to, you mentioned that we're starting to see a little bit of shift in that. This generation seems to have a little bit more looking out for the interests of others. What are some skills maybe that you've seen students maybe develop a little bit more? Empathy might be one of them, but is there any other skills that you've seen them develop outside of their careers that has maybe benefited them?
Well, I think to your point, I think empathy and love and all those things are there, and that's intrinsic to a lot of our students. I think they don't know how sometimes to see where they can use it, because being in student services, that's the area that I'm in at Freed-Hardeman. We have to deal with a lot of situations.
Right.
A lot. Stuff you don't want to know. And you have to deal with, and you have to do it in a loving, kind way, but make right decisions and all that stuff. Being in that area for 20 years now or a little bit more, I can see things that other people don't see because I'm picking up on, what is said, how somebody's behavior, red flags that keep popping up certain places. Because of where I've been and the situations I've dealt with, I can see that a little bit quicker than somebody that maybe has not been able to have those experiences and deal with those situations. So I think the love and the empathy and all those things are there in our students. They don't always know where to put it.
Yeah.
They don't always go, well, we see this person at church all the time. They seem fine. They go home, they're not fine. They need other people in their life. Or, maybe this lady, has nobody, her husband has passed away, and there's nobody just to rake the leaves at her house, and all those things that the husband did. There's all these situations that sometimes they don't know about, or they don't see, they don't see those red flags, or they don't see, sometimes people are trying to say it in their words that they need something, but they don't want to come right out and say it. And there's some people that are really good in picking up on, oh, wait, she said this a little bit, this way. I think something's going on there. I think developing your skills to be aware, pick up on, I think this person needs some help, needs some assistance, or needs a little bit of love and care.
Right.
I think developing that skill set, and goodness, you've got prayer. You've got God, help show me where I need to be, your relationship with God and what he can do in your life. And he works every day, and he's in your life every day. Sometimes it just takes you going, Lord, I need you to show me something today. I need you to show me where I need to be and help me to figure this out. What he can do. Yeah,
and you mentioned too that they have these skills, they just don't always know how to use them. I think intentional programs such as University Servants Day is a great opportunity for them to maybe see how that plays out a little bit. Sometimes they don't always know that they have these abilities until they are able to use them, and and how they feel afterwards. They're like, that felt pretty good to be able to do that and help that person. And so maybe intentional programs such as, University Servants Day, or if you're at another school, developing a program similar to that's just like, this is a day we're dedicating to this to help you recognize some of these skills, maybe recognize that this is something that's important to do, right, to develop these skills, and maybe that recognition, like you talked about, that this needs to happen, right? Thinking about, we talked a little bit about this earlier about the diverse group of students that we have at Freed-Hardeman. We have students from all different countries, all different parts of the United States. We also have people that we serve through University Servants Day from all different ages, demographics as well. We mentioned going to the Southern Oaks to sing to them, a bunch of older, people at the assisted living facility as well. And we help students in the schools that were the youngest of that demographic, right? So how does engaging with people from different backgrounds help build character? And why is it essential for individuals to embrace diversity in their personal, communal lives?
Sure. And I'll go back to that. To me, that definition of character is being Christ-like, right? So you don't always know where anybody is coming from. You don't know what situations they've been in. You don't know what baggage that they have. If you think going in and just dealing with somebody the way that you would your buddy and the people that you've grown up with all your life is going to help in a situation that doesn't always, you know, and understanding and knowledge of somebody and their culture and what they've been through, being purposeful and trying to find that out means a lot to somebody. I mean, think of you and me. I mean, if I want to get to know you or I want you to know I love you and I care about you, but I don't care anything about where you've been, think about your family.
Don't know anything about me,
I mean, if I'm sitting there exuding that I don't care anything about any part of your life, you're not going to allow me to be a part of your life, you know? And so that understanding of things helps in developing, your character, your Christ-like qualities, because you're engaging with somebody to be very purposeful about, I love you and I care about you and I want to know about you. And if I know certain things about you, then I may know more about how to be Christ-like in your life and how to be the thing that you need at the time that you need it.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about how the impact that University Servants Day and different programs like that have on students. What impact have you seen on the community? I know we talk a lot about how this benefits in character development, and that's what we talk a lot about on this podcast, but how have you seen maybe the reaction from the community and those that we've served? Has there been like maybe a perception change of Freed-Hardeman? One of the questions I had that I was going to ask you was about trust in the community and how there's sometimes a dynamic with maybe Freed-Hardeman and the community. It's two separate things. Have you seen kind of a reaction from the community in their response to days like University Servants Day, where their reaction to it? What have you seen?
I don't think you'll ever have 100% of a community loving a group of people all the time, anywhere.
Yeah.
It's
never going to be in any town.
In any town. And we have a set of young people that are anywhere from 18 to 22 that sometimes don't always make the right decisions, and they're still developing who they are and trying to make huge life decisions. So sometimes they do things that might make people in the community upset with them. Right. Rightfully so sometimes. Yeah. And so, but going out and doing things like this on University Servants Day does make an impact. And you get people that will send us notes or letters or cards or send something to the president or TJ, as vice president, just talking about how much it meant to them that they went to their school or they went to, this family and did this for them and all this. So you get positive feedback from the community, and it does help, and that Servants Day really is for our community here in Chester County. Right. We have a few people that will go out to Jackson and other areas, which is fine because, trying to find a service project for 1,200 people, that's kind of tough. And it only helps, And then also there's stuff that our students do that we don't even know about and never know about or find out about later. You're like, oh wow, I did not realize they were doing that, And
we just mentioned this a little bit with the impact on the community, but this is the fourth year, September. This was the fourth year we've done University Servants Day. Speaking of long-term effects, have you seen anything from when we first started this, year one, and now with it being year 4? Any long-term effects of, some good things that have come out of it as far as with it being the fourth year, are people kind of expecting this day to be a big day? What are some things that have kind of come out of long-term that have been good?
Well, I think it's starting to be built into them to plan for this. And if you're having to think about something like that, then it's in your mind. I got to be purposeful and I got to figure out what are my skills, what are my strengths, what can I do to serve people. Right. And now we're into our fourth year, and that's 4 years of college kids. Yeah. So now we're into kids, that have been doing this for a few years now. Yeah. Which only benefits those new ones coming in because you have more students, and we're like, oh yeah, we're doing this Servants Day, and we did this over here and this group did this over here. So you're having more students that have experience in it that can help guide and help
mentor, and a lot of those things
that are new, that are coming in. I think that's been the benefit of having a few years behind you.
Yeah.
Because when we were first starting, they were like, well, what do we do? And I can sit there and say, well, you come up with something. You what do you want to do? And they're looking at you just stare blank, But now I've got classes that have been through this before that can go, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to figure it out, and here's what we're going to do, or here's some ideas, And so I think that's been the benefit of it is now we're really rolling. Now we're really having some experienced students that are older that can mentor the others.
Yeah, and it's also too, one of the things I thought about was there's a lot of things that happen in the world, whether it's a flooding or something like that, and when there's opportunities that come up to serve in areas that have been affected by that, it's not the first time they've had to do it. With it having something like University Servants Day, they've had experience with going out, maybe getting out of their comfort zone a little bit. So if the opportunity arises in the future, one of the things I thought about was, well, things like University Servants Day probably help prepare them for other opportunities to serve later, whether that's in a area that's been affected by floods, tornadoes, or just in their local church when they get out of college. They're maybe more equipped, I guess, to serve others, and maybe it's a little bit more natural to them than it was before.
Well, things like that, there's so many logistics to that. There's so many things to plan that some people are like, oh, yeah, let's just go help. Okay, oh, great, you got transportation. You got how much, who's going to feed us? How are we going to get food in a place that's devastated? How are we going to take care of the group that goes there? Where are we staying? Just right off. Those are the things just off the top of my head, that I'm thinking, okay, we got to plan all this stuff out. And so doing any kind of activity takes some kind of planning. Not everybody has experience trying to be in charge of one of those things.
Yeah. Good stuff, Tony. I really appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate working with you. I work with Tony a lot in making music and different things, and it's because of him. Like I like making music, but if Tony wasn't so good to work with, it wouldn't be something I just enjoy doing all the time. So,
well, I do remember one of your questions was about trust.
Yeah.
Trust is a big thing with me. And I only want to work with people that I trust. And if I trust you, you can say anything you want to say to me.
Yeah.
Tony, you're being a jerk. Tony, you aren't doing this right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to accept it because I trust you.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it out of meanness. You're not doing it out of trying to get something out of me. You would be doing it because, hey, there's a problem here. We need to fix it kind of stuff. And I trust you. Called out to you with what you're working with because I could not trust the people that were before.
Yeah.
And I knew you would exceed even my expectations on all that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I enjoy it, and I enjoy working with you, and it's been a good experience. So look forward to working with you in the future. And I really appreciate you coming on. I know, as I mentioned before, you're a very busy guy here at Freed-Hardeman. You're up late a lot with working with the different things that you do with making music, intramurals, all those different things, and probably a lot going on that a lot of people don't know about. So I really appreciate you taking time this morning to come and talk with me about this and from your experience with community responsibility. So I really appreciate you coming on.
This is fun.
All right, thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Playing with a Purpose podcast. Special thanks again to Tony Allen for being my guest this week. Be sure to check out this episode and future episodes on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find the Playing with a Purpose podcast on the Ministry League Podcast Network, Freed-Hardeman Athletics Champions of Character website at gofhulions.com/champions of character, and on the NAIA Champions of Character website at naia.org/champions of character. Join us for our next episode next week as we talk with Freed-Hardeman head men's soccer coach Jason Elliott on the topic of dealing with adversity. And remember, winning isn't just about the scoreboard, it's about the character we build along the way. We'll see you next week on the Playing with a Purpose podcast.